Alright, so we go to wftutorials.com. We're going to do getting started with GraphQL and Node.js tutorial. So GraphQL allows you to get data differently. So let's go to the installation requirements. We need Express GraphQL, and Mongoose. So we can install this. So we have npm install. We can start setting up our server. Create a basic file called index.js. This is the full code inside it. So everything here is pretty straightforward. You require Express, you require Express GraphQL, you require Mongoose, body parser, cause. This is the app you call in here. You're telling it to use cause. Schema is a different file, right? So we have other information in schema, so just take note of that. And you have your Mongo URI. If you don't know how to set up Mongo, you can check out this tutorial here, where I did a full introduction into Node.js, but that includes setting up a Mongoose server. Let's see, which one is it? Mongo. Alright, so you can check that out. So this is basic stuff. You have a connection here. We use body parser. We use GraphQL. We pass in the schema we created earlier. This is a basic part, so redirect to GraphQL. That's what it's saying. So app get is a get request. This is the part. REQ stands for request, Alias stands for response. So response redirect to GraphQL, and then we listen at port 4000. So if we do this, we'll have this. So at port 4000, you see we have our GraphQL server already set up. This is our MongoDB database called users. So this is all the users we have in it. And we can query that using GraphQL. So our first query is pretty simple. Just query, open brackets, users, open brackets, put the data we want, which is first name, close brackets, close brackets. And if you wanted more, let's say you want to do last name as well, comma, last name, run. And let's look at our data again. So you get email as well. So let's add email. So it's really that simple. This is your API query, and this is the results that you get. So in schema.js, this is where we define how our GraphQL server runs. So we require GraphQL, and this is a file, so we have query and mutation. So let's look at query. So that's query.js. So we have Mongoose here, which is the connection to our database. We have a model, a user's model, user's type. This is a base query. So a base query is basically the query we just did. So users, first name, last name, email. And what we say here, users type. You can add a limit when you get to that. And when it returns, what it's actually doing is calling users find exec and returning the results. So basically this is the connection between GraphQL and the database. So it's actually finding the data here and returning it to us so that it can be displayed in this format. So GraphQL isn't actually transforming our data. We are the ones defining how it returns. If we want to layer one user, we can do something like this: user open brackets, close brackets, and we put ID. And in our query.js, we can see how we're actually doing that. So we have the user, args is what we're passing in, which is the ID here, and then actually runs user find by one, which is a function on the model, which the user's model is Mongoose model. Alright, so when we do that and we press run, we'll get our user with the specific primary key. When we rename it here, it's really -id, and let's look in the database. It's that same user. You'll notice primary key doesn't exist in our database. So what we actually did is renamed it by saying primary key is actually equal to ID or underscore ID. So that instead of just getting underscore ID, we call it primary key. We can do this to others as well. We can call this ID first ID. Yeah, that's actually fine. Well, we get first ID, and if we wanted to change first name, we could change it to start name, which makes no sense, but let's try that. So we have start name, and then we have end name, and well, IP address is already converted. So that's how we can rename fields. Now we actually created a different kind of query, user by ID. This was because we have our own IDs within our objects instead of the auto-generated one. So we created one called user by ID. This is how we created it. It's almost the same as a basic user. And when we run that, there we go. We can change the ID. So you could create your own queries if you want. Well, creating all of them, but you can create one more to use as you see fit. So we can do something called aliases, which is just another way to define a data set. So we have query admins. If we run now, we see the data is now defined as admins instead of just being users. We can define another data set. Let's call this members. We run that. So we now have two data sets which run in the same basic query, which is users, but we gave it a different alias. One is admins, one is members. Right now it's showing the same thing, but you can add different filters within the user's query to actually define or specify or filter or change how each dataset shows its response. So in the last example, I actually have a limit inside our users function. So how do we do this? If we look in query.js, we can see we pass in limit. Well, limit is set as within the args, and within resolve or resolve function, we have access to limit. So if it isn't there, we don't need to use it. But if it is there, then in our Mongoose model, we could pass it in and define how or what we want to do with limit. So let's just look at that in our Mongoose model. So users model. That's the basic. Wow, you don't need to go in there. So find, and once you pass in a limit, apparently that does it. So using our friend Stack Overflow, as you can see, once we call limit, that's all we need to do. So all we did here is pass call limit and pass any limit that we received from args, and that should do it. So now when we pass a limit, we can define how many results we want to get back. So 10, or 1 or 3. You get the point. So we're going to try someone else's playground. Let's just use a basic query to see what we have. Run. So we have a list of countries. You can learn more. Check out the GitHub account. This is what we're using. Alright, so basic queries. You just listed the name. Bam, that's complete. What else can we do? We want the currency. So let's check that out. Comma, currency. So now we have a list of countries with currencies. And we can add a filter. So that's our country, Trinidad and Tobago. So you see our name and country, Trinidad, currency, TTD. If you notice, we passed in the filter. So that's like some arguments we passed into our query. Right, what else can we do? We are going to filter by continent. Let's check that out. What does SA stands for? I'm not sure. South America. So, South American countries. There we go. And we can do something called introspection, which is looking at how the data is set up. So, right now we want to see the schema, the different types. So, query, continent, the whole schema, and the types of query, continent filter, stuff like that. So that's great if you want information about your GraphQL server. This should give us what? About a type. So about the country type, you have the code, the name, the native, the phone, the continent. So these are all things we could query on country. Languages, states. Right? We can do subqueries. So we have a list of continents. We list the name of the continents, and then we want the countries within those continents. So Africa, and then the countries within Africa. So I don't know how to set this up using code as yet. This is someone else's server, but we can check it out later if necessary. So that was subqueries. We can pull a country by its code. So country, passing code, get the name of the country and the languages. So we're going to use someone else's API, Apple-based API. Same countries though, so it looks more or less the same. Yes, we have countries and then we have a subquery called capital. So it lists all the countries and capital. Oh yeah, what we actually want to test out is the limit. So I don't think our playground before had limits in it. If you tried it out, this is not a countries query. Let's see, countries, name, query. Let's try to do limit. Doesn't have limit. You see, it's not coming up, but we're gonna try it anyway. No argument limit. So we have limits here. If you add 5, you get back 5. Has some other suggestions? Where, limit, skip. So you have skip and where. Did we try these? Yes, we did. So we say where name is equal to Trinidad and Tobago. So let's check that out. So where is the argument? Name, and EQ is equal, stands for equal to Trinidad and Tobago. So equal won't work if I put America, would it? Let's see. I don't think so. I need like a list of countries. So let's try it out. List of countries, same name. Yeah. And then we get the name of a country. Say, alright, so let's do that. So we're going to try this with another country, but we have the list here. Because it's equal to, it needs a specific name, we're just going to try any country. Alright, pretty straightforward. So some of the options are EQ, which is equal to equal, not equal, in, and not in. So we explain that here. And our next thing we're going to go into is mutations. Mutations allow us to add and delete data or edit, most likely edit as well, data using GraphQL interface. So in our mutation JS, we have add user. In Alias, we require all the fields to create the object. In Resolve, we create the user based on the pass args. So in Alias, you have to pass in all the fields. So ID, first name, last name, email, gender, IP, and the types. So int, string, 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 string. And in Resolve, we get the values, and then we can create a user based on the values. So new users, this would be our Mongoose model, and then we call the save function. So let's check that out in mutation. So that's exactly how that works. We also have the delete user, which calls the Mongoose model user remove once we pass in the ID. So we can test this out using our own query. Did I do that? Yes, I did. Where do I have it? So let's copy this, right? So our mutation is this. We're gonna go into this and create our mutation. Right. Mutation. I think add user. Right, what comes next? ID. How do we pass an ID? Like that. Alright. 5,000. That should be fine. First name. Clark. Last name. Dude. Yes, we need email, gender, ID. Email. Dude at test.com. And there's a string, so we need to put brackets across it. Yep. We need to put brackets across all of them. I mean, quotations. Or what do you call that? That quotes. Yeah. IP, I think IP is now. IP. Is it IP? Yes. I left out gender. So gender, male, and IP. And I think we can put in anything here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's giving an error. So it tends to want us to give a result as well. So you will see we getting back the ID and we're getting back the first name, the mutation we added, and we run that. If you look for it on a database, you have to look for 5,000, which is might take forever. I'm not sure how to find this. Options. Max items, limit, skip, 1,000. Alright, there we go. So that's our 5,000 there. So you have the ID, the first name, the last name, the email, the mail, the gender, sorry, and the IP address. So we just added a user. just as we defined it here. Delete is pretty straightforward. And this data returned. We delete my user. So delete user, pass in the ID, and I guess we return the ID. Window it says none. Alright, so that's basic GraphQL. As always, they can do a lot more. But this should get you up and started. Thanks for watching.